Hi, this is Mark Baer. Welcome to the Yorktown Television Show program. I'm your host this Tuesday and every third Tuesday of the month. My first guest, which I'm pleased to have with me, Adele Negro from Monterey Institute of International Studies. So, hello, and well, let's start. Let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you came to be here.
Well, very nice to be here with you, Mark, and to meet you. It was thanks to our mutual friend and colleague, Magdi Ibrahim, that we were introduced. Magdi and I are both graduates of the Monterey Institute. I graduated in '98 as a conference interpreter, translator, English, Spanish, and French. Since then, I have become a full-time professional translator-interpreter, also taught advanced interpreting at the Institute for a couple of years, and then was asked by the then Dean of the International Policy Studies program at the Monterey Institute to take on a dramatically new aspect of work, which entailed my language abilities, but has rapidly morphed into something much more substantial. He asked me to be the language faculty for a pilot program in sustainable development work that was going to occur in El Salvador, a student proposed project that he helped launch in 2006. I went down as the language faculty to oversee the language competencies of these students, but within a program that was proposed as a way for the Monterey Institute graduate students of all programs, the policy, management, and language and linguistics programs, to have a context, and they chose El Salvador, in which to employ their emerging professional skills, to develop further cultural competency and expand and enhance their language abilities, because these are emerging bilingual professionals that, as the Monterey Institute calls it, are the solution or hope to be the solutions in each in his or her own way in a world that is increasingly complex and calls for competent problem-solving young people.
Okay, so this is the El Salvador project.
This is the El Salvador project.
And this has been, now how many years are we into this?
This will be the 8th year, and
okay.
I have now become, in the last 6 years, I have become the program advisor and director. And we are going down with a new team of students. Every year it's a multidisciplinary team of students that goes to a very beautiful and very challenging area of southeastern El Salvador. It's a Ramsar site, which means, for any of your audience members that may be familiar with this, the Ramsar Convention designated wetlands areas throughout the world in 1971, and in 2005, the wetlands area where we work became a designated site of international importance, and therefore is a biosphere area that must be both protected and developed in a sustainable way.
Okay, let me just to fill the audience a little bit. This is also a conflict area.
This is a post-conflict area.
Okay, well, but it had been a conflict. So the
yes.
healing is still going on,
yes.
the wounds are still on. So this is a little bit different than going into, I mean, this is a different space because.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how that was and what part of that plays in what you're doing.
Well, that is a very key question and a key impetus for our work. As many of you may know, there was a brutal 12-year civil war that occurred in El Salvador. From 1980 to 1992, the peace accords were signed in 1992, and the area where we work, which is the department of Usulután, was a very rich agricultural area, but also terribly depopulated during the Civil War. People scattered all over the place. 1/3 of the population of El Salvador left the country. Many of them to the United States, some to other countries of Central America. So at the end of the Civil War, people came back and started populating areas where many of them had never been before. But where we work is highly rich and diverse in terms of natural resources and soil fertility, but it's also highly contaminated. So we are working with a grassroots organization which is trying to, since 1995-96, stimulate human development, capacity building, and at the same time make possible not only sustainable development, but sustainable resource conservation and management to balance human livelihood and natural resource conservation. It's a very, very fertile but impoverished area. So for the last 22 years, they have been strategically designing development programs in sustainable agriculture, trying to transform a highly chemical, artificial form of agriculture, conventional style, into organic agriculture, environmental policy program in rich watershed areas, developing infrastructural improvements like stoves and latrines that change the way people's health is affected.
So in your time there, what change have you seen?
So what we do is work with these people to support these community-based organizations to support their strategic goals. And what we have seen, for example, 4 years ago, we saw a potable water distribution system put in by Engineers Without Borders, with whom we collaborated. We did a next step, which was to assess with the skills of the Institute students that are in program development, survey design, monitoring and evaluation. We assessed the effects of a new potable water system in communities that were once upon a time and until then dependent on contaminated wells. We could see the unfolding of new sources of small-scale entrepreneurship or free time for women who did not have to go to the wells. Children's health was slowly improving. With the improved stoves, where the smoke from the wood-burning stove doesn't go into the house but goes through an improved chimney, there weren't as many respiratory diseases. They're beginning to work on, and since then we have seen the development and the building of a hospital, the first in our area where we work, to deal with the kidney diseases, the high degree, the high incidence of kidney diseases, which are now being studied more systematically. So health is beginning to improve, the ability of kids to go to school, which also has to do with a change in government. During the time that we've been going to El Salvador, not only have we been working in partnership with this community-based organization and its NGO, but we have also seen an electoral system that has brought in a more progressive government that has begun to make substantial changes in educational policy, in making school life much more accessible to everyone, especially the poor, opening up some of the clinics to make more possible a fee structure that makes the health system accessible to a much larger gamut of people. There are agricultural production stimuli that are trying to raise many of these communities from a subsistence level to bring them to a much more even point of sale level of production rather than merely subsistence. These are long-range, long-term elements that are part of this large strategy, both at the local level and at the national level.
What I really like about it is you are trying not to just get back to subsistence.
Right.
You're trying to get back to some real dignity and some real vision.
That's a key word, vision.
So let's talk about some of the other things that you're doing and what some of the things that you'd like to do in the future here.
Well, for example, the projects that we'll be working on have to do with, and this is a key aspect of the work we do, is to help build capacity, not only theirs but ours, to support the areas of capacity building that they would like us to collaborate on. Collaboration is a key aspect of this. And we also learn in this collaborative moment. So we build the capacity of our students. What we are tasked to do in the future now, which is based on a track record that establishes a basis of trust, which is extremely important in this kind of work. We have been tasked to develop a system, a best practices system and procedures for a microcredit program that will make possible this expanded agricultural production that the NGO and the community-based organization is hoping to develop among the small-scale farmers to maintain the diversified farming, diversified organic leaning farming that has been done, but also to expand the capacity for more volume of production. Microlending, a solid microlending program is needed. Our students can help support a design or help design a best practices, not only manual, but procedures for making an administrative structure really workable for a microlending program that will look at artisanal production, expanded agricultural production, maybe help some sustainable aquaculture industry at an artisanal level, make possible a range of small-scale entrepreneurial and then beyond, so that the gap between production and sale is increasingly closed. That will also involve infrastructure that needs developing. Another project that we will do, speaking of infrastructure, is what I think you and I have talked about in the past, and which is very, very exciting for me, which is the whole idea of looking at the space in communities. One of the projects that we're doing now, which is exciting and sort of cutting edge for these communities as well, is to re-envision the utilization of space, of community space, based on models that have been tried in other countries, in other areas, many of them urban, in urban settlements that are precarious. And we are adapting the model of that landscape architects have developed in other countries all over the world, a very visionary template, I would say, to engage communities, marginal communities, or in this case, rural communities who are highly organized but still impoverished, to have an inventive, creative say in the way their space is conceived of and utilized with their input. How does space empower communities to make the best use of where they live? Space is empowering, just as language is empowering, to articulate a vision. So what we're going to do is assess how these community people, who may never have thought about this, look at space.
Tell me a bit about your partner on this, your architectural partner, because this is very, very exciting.
My partner and I, he and a colleague of his have written a number of articles and a bilingual book, which is very, very fascinating. He's an architect trained at the University of Buenos Aires. He's Argentinian, but also trained as a landscape architect at the School of Landscape Design at Harvard. And he's a very old friend of mine. I returned to Argentina with the idea of starting potentially a Team Argentina, adapting the model of El Salvador to a more urban context. Started talking with him about it, and we discovered these synergies, which is always so wonderful, is to discover the synergies that exist between the work he was doing in marginal communities of Buenos Aires and what we could possibly envision here. So what we are trying to put together, and it's in a pilot stage, so we welcome input and all kinds of other synergies that may even come from engaged people in this area. For example, Fort Ord, what they're doing now in Fort Ord, the colloquium that just happened at Fort Ord, is the same kind of idea, envisioning a new utilization of space in this area. What Max and I are trying to do in these very rural communities.
His name we should...
Max Rome.
Okay.
Max Rome. Rome is my architect colleague and friend, with whom I devised a program or a project based on taking an inventory of spaces that have been established. Some of them are structures, buildings, that provide maybe refuges during time of flooding. This is a very flood-prone area. It's a delta area where we work in El Salvador. looking at public parks or spaces where kids play soccer, looking at a small-scale ecotourism, set of cabanas and a restaurant. Look at the existing spaces to see if they can be capitalized with, if those spaces can be capitalized upon to create new possibilities, whether they're small-scale entrepreneurship, new ways of social interaction, old people, young people, to bring people together in a way that they are not able to do that at this time.
I mean, public pride, self-esteem, I mean, this is, and change of identity, who you are, and your vision by your surroundings. I mean, it seems like a very obvious thing. Now, we're running out of time already. So first of all, if there's anybody out there, how can they help you? And how can they reach you?
Well, our email, why don't I give our email, which is all one string of letters, teamelsalvador@miis.edu. Team El Salvador at Monterey Institute of International Studies. So it's teamelsalvador@miis.edu. And either I or my team leaders will answer. Team leadership is a very key part of all of this, both on the ground in El Salvador and here, the creation of team leadership.
And then can people read more about this also? Yes.
We have a blog site, and if I may be permitted to put on my glasses to give you our blog site, it's blogs.miis.edu/Team El Salvador. We have a lot of description on our blog site of what we have done, the projects that we have worked on in the past, and we are in the process of updating it. But we would love to engage in new synergies with even local people. If people have ideas, are doing something similar, I would love to talk with people, as we are doing with CSUMB.
Okay, my guest, Adele Negro, thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure.